take a picture of this quickly. Remember, no serious guys in your 30s. Need any help on your pec? Let me know. Look at that. Still working out. Anybody else want to be sworn in as a senator today? It's a Democrat, I know, but it's okay. Spread your legs, you're going to be frisked.
Vice President Biden having some fun there, swearing in the new senators on Capitol Hill. And we are joined now by three rising stars of this new Congress. Democratic Senator Heidi Heitkamp, who surprised so many in the political world by winning in North Dakota, a state where Mitt Romney beat President Obama by almost 20 points. Republican Congressman Tom Cotton from Arkansas, who volunteered with 101st Airborne in Iraq and Afghanistan after getting degrees from Harvard and Harvard Law. And Joaquín Castro of Texas, just named president of the House Freshman Democrats. You might remember his twin brother, the mayor of San Antonio, keynoted this year's Democratic convention. Welcome to all of you. And Senator Heitkamp, let me begin with you. You're one of 20 women now in the Senate. We saw all of you talking with Diane Sawyer just the other day, talking about how women are better at working together than men. And during the campaign, that was actually your biggest criticism of President Obama. I want to show everybody what you said during the campaign. I think President Obama's failed in the one test America had for him, which was to unite the country. I think he needed to be more hands-on. I don't think he's done enough to think broadly and come up with solutions that would engage both sides in a reasonable dialogue. So how does he fix that right now, and how can you help him?
I think the first thing, and in the last segment, you saw a leader, the minority leader, talk in ultimatums. We all need to stop talking in ultimatums and say only these, narrowing the debate. Put everything on the table, start working together. That's what you do in America, in every small town and every business in America. You don't rule out anything.
But the president's got an ultimatum. He says he's not even going to talk about spending cuts over the debt limit.
I think what we need to do is stop talking in ultimatums and start talking about how we resolve the issue with a sense of urgency. And so that's what the American people sent us here to do. And that's why I think I got elected, because I talked about results. There's people who run for these jobs who want the job, and then there's people who want to do the job. And we just need to get to work.
Congressman Castro, a lot of your Democratic allies think the president hasn't been tough enough.
Well, sure. He has gotten some criticism on the left. But, whenever you come to a compromise with the other party, you're going to get criticism from your own party, too, because it's not a perfect deal. And the president has worked in earnest with Republicans to try to reduce the debt. He's going to continue to do that. But I agree with the senator. It can't be about ultimatums. The Republicans, a lot of what you just heard Senator McConnell say was the same thing that Republicans have been saying for the last few years. It's as if the election never happened and we never learned any lessons from it.
What's your response to that, Congressman Cotton?
Well, we have a debt crisis in this country, and it's clearly caused by too much spending and too little growth. And we have an opportunity over the next 60 to 90 days in the new Congress to face the most consequential questions that we will face in the next 2 years. And that's to get our economy growing by reforming our tax code, cutting spending. The president has said he wants $3 of spending cuts for every $1 of tax increases. He just got $600 billion of tax increases. So I hope we see $1.8 trillion at least in spending cuts.
Let me also ask you about the other big news this morning. It looks like, let me go to another issue right now. We can come back to that in a minute, sure. Congressman Castro, because it does appear now that President Obama is about to nominate Chuck Hagel to be Secretary of Defense. And you, Congressman Cotton, have actually already come out against the nomination. You wrote in the Wall Street Journal, a soldier's eye view of Chuck Hagel. His record on Iraq alone should disqualify the former senator from leading U.S. troops in a time of war. So if you were in the Senate, you would vote against him.
I would vote against him. I'm disappointed the president has nominated Mr. Hagel, and I would urge the Senate to oppose that nomination. Mr. Hagel came out against the surge the week that I returned from Iraq in 2006, said the war couldn't be won. No one had told us that when we were fighting it in 2006. He delayed emergency funding for the troops in 2007. Even after the surge succeeded in 2008, he still said that it wasn't because of the troops addition. When you add that to his dangerous views on Iran and Hezbollah and Hamas and terrorism, as well as his strange hostility towards Israel, I think the Senate should oppose Mr. Hagel as Secretary of Defense. There are many other qualified Democratic defense professionals who the president could nominate.
Senator Heitkamp, this is going to be your first vote for a defense secretary. What do you make of that argument, and do you think that Senator Hagel is the right choice?
Well, this is again the Washington view of things. Chuck Hagel is a tremendous patriot and statesman, served incredibly in Vietnam, served this country as a United States Senator. He hasn't had a chance to speak for himself. And so why all the prejudging, I don't know. I mean, to me, in America, you give everybody a chance to speak for themselves, and then we'll decide. And so it just, again, is this kind of fight is the fight that the people of this country get so frustrated about and with. Let Chuck Hagel get nominated if he's going to be nominated, and let's hear what the senator has to say.
Congressman Castro, I want to bring up another issue I brought up with Senator McConnell with you. It was pretty clear from talking to Senator McConnell that he doesn't believe that the Senate should take up gun control measures until after these fiscal issues are dealt with the first part of this year. He says 3 months at least.
Well, you know, there's no question that the debt is an important issue, but immigration reform and gun control are also important issues that the American people, quite frankly, have asked the Congress to deal with. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt that he's sincere in wanting to deal with the debt first, but I hope that it's not a stalling tactic. And I wanted to say also, with regard to the situation with the debt ceiling limit, the worst thing that we can do as a nation is create another self-inflicted wound the way we did last time. The best thing that we can do is cooperate, work together in a bipartisan spirit to get this economy back and working. That's one of the ways that we're going to be able to reduce this debt and get things moving again.
Senator Heitkamp, you're a proud NRA member in the state of North Dakota. Are you willing to sign on to some of the reforms that Vice President Biden and President Obama are already talking about?
You know, it's unclear. I mean, you read Washington Post stories and you listen to what the administration says. And so I think what we need to do is we need to take a look at what happened at Sandy Hook. When I was Attorney General, I was tasked with a national task force on school violence. We made a number of recommendations, which in fact were adopted at Sandy Hook to help keep schools safer. They weren't adequate. Let's start addressing the problem. And to me, one of the issues that I think screams out of this is the issue of mental health and the care for the mentally ill in our country, especially the dangerously mentally ill. And so we need to have a broad discussion before we start.
The White House is talking about that, but are you willing to talk about gun control as well?
Well, I think you need to put everything on the table. But what I hear from the administration, and if the Washington Post is to be believed, that's way in extreme of what I think is necessary or even should be talked about. And it's not going to pass.
Well, but
see,
George,
that's the other thing.
And can I point out also to the senator, and I agree, and many folks who have said that mental health and mental illness is an issue, I agree with that. But at the same time, many of those folks, and not to speak to the senator's position, but many of those folks have also slashed funding for mental health care, for mental illness, and they're unwilling to close the gun show loophole, which would allow anyone, whether they're in a gang, whether they're mentally ill, to go in and buy a gun with no background check at all, including the Bushmaster and the AR-15, which we know have caused problems.
So there's going to be some debates among Democrats here as well. Let me bring in Congressman Cotton for another question now, because I want to put up, as I bring this to you, Congressman, a new poll, a USA Today Gallup poll from December, showing the congressional approval rating coming into this year, 18%. Now, that's actually higher than it was a few months before. It had actually gotten as low as 9 at some point, I believe. So you're part of this new class, and you've been touted by so many as a possible star of the freshman Republican class. How do you fix that? What do you think is the source of that disapproval, and how do you fix it?
George, it reminds me of one of my very first events on the campaign trail. An elderly woman came up to me and said, "You were in the Army, right?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am, I was. I was in Iraq and Afghanistan." And she said, "And now you want to go to Congress, correct?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am, I do." And she said, "Why would you want to leave the country's most respected institution for the country's least respected institution?" And I think one of the reasons why the Army and the military more broadly is respected is the character they display, not just the actions they take. The willingness to confront hard problems head on, a sense of purpose and mission and teamwork, to deal with ambiguous, difficult circumstances and make hard decisions under the highest of stakes. I think if we showed a little bit more of that character in the Congress and in Washington more broadly, then Congress and Washington might be a little bit more respected than they are now.
Well, I see your colleagues smiling and nodding their heads. I'm afraid that's all we have time for today, but I hope you'll all come back very soon. Congratulations on your election and swearing in this week.
Thank you, George.